Now, like I mentioned earlier, I have been able to make this transition into the tech space. I started off with a degree in computer science, and I was able to niche down specifically to, the data space, from data analytics to data science, data engineering, and even AI engineering and roles like ML ops. All right. So I'll be bringing my wealth of knowledge and experience into the conversation that we're going to be having today. But before we dive into the actual conversation, I would like to hear from everyone on the call right now. For each one of us, there is a particular tech track that we actually have in mind, right? That we are, geared towards, that we are attracted to. I would like for every single person on the call right now to go into the chat box and actually share with me which one of these tech tracks you are actually interested in and why. Right? So if you're interested in cybersecurity, I want you to go into the chat and let me know, oh, this is Jedidiah. I'm interested in cybersecurity, and this is the reason why. I've learned that cybersecurity gives you an opportunity to work remotely. Yeah, you do not need to go to an office. You get to work from the comfort of your home, and you earn, really beautiful salaries. So yes, I would like for every one of us to go into the chat and actually just share that. All right. So what tech track you're interested in, and why? Why exactly do you want to get into the tech space? Right? I would absolutely love to get responses from everyone on the call. All right, all right, all right. Okay, so Michael says cloud or data engineering. All right, so Michael has answered one part of the question. Second part is why? Why exactly are you interested in? What is your motivation towards getting into cloud and data engineering? I would love for every single person on the call right now to do that. Philip says, I'm interested in upskilling from management information systems. All right, so Philip is not giving what track he might be interested in getting into. I'm assuming that you are not certain yet. Which one of these tracks you want to get into. Steve wants to get into DevOps because he wants job security, and it looks like a less saturated role right now. Yes, absolutely. Right. Philip says cybersecurity or cloud is okay. Fantastic, fantastic. So when you look at roles like DevOps, ML ops, I have personally worked in the ML ops space, which is very similar to DevOps, just for the machine learning, ecosystem. DevOps, data engineering, I'm getting bored of data analytics. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. There are lots of opportunities, but you really need to start by positioning yourself for these opportunities. All right, you need to position yourself for these opportunities, and that's what we'll be discussing. Now, at the end of the conversation we'll be having today, you would have understood who a DevOps engineer is, who a data engineer is, and who a cybersecurity engineer is. You would understand what the nuance is between what each one of these professionals do, and how you can actually get into any one of these spaces. And very importantly, how Analytics can help you to do that through premium training as well as the internship. And there's a special offer for every single person on the call right now. So stick around to the end of the session and you will be able to take advantage of that special offer that we have packaged for every single person on the call right now. Now, before we move further into the actual conversation, there's one very important detail, one very important activity that I would really appreciate if everyone on the call could go on to do. If you look into the chat, you see that my colleagues are sharing an attendance form. Please ensure that you fill out that form because it gives you access to the recording of this session, as well as the materials being used. That way you can revise the conversation we had. If you need to, you can go back to it and pick up on certain details that you might have missed during the conversation. So please make sure you fill in that form so that you have access to all of these materials. All right, it takes less than a minute to get that done. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Let's dive in. First of all, I would like to start with a very interesting fact. Over 70% of companies today use DevOps, cybersecurity, and data engineering. Every single one of our daily activities today results in data being generated. Even this call we are on right now, data is being generated about this call. There's data being recorded about what time each one of us joined the call. There's data being recorded about who joined the call. There's data being recorded about when the call started, how long did it last. The recording that we are currently making about this session is data that is being generated. Before you join this call, you're probably scrolling through social media. That is data that you're generating. Just scrolling through social media without doing anything. You did not like, you did not comment, nothing, just scrolling through social media. It's actually data that's being generated. Just seeing a post is data that you are generating. So every single human activity today, you search for something on Google, that's data being generated. You send money to someone, that's data being generated. You like a post on Facebook, that's data being generated. You watch a video on YouTube, that's data being generated. You turn on your phone, that's literally data being generated. I'm sure some of us have gotten notifications around things like screen time, right? That's because from the time you turn on your phone all the way to the time you turn it off and drop it, there's been data captured, right? This is how long you're using your device for. It's because that data has been generated that you can have, something like, this is your average screen time. This is the average amount of time you spend on your phone. This is how long you spent on Instagram. This is how long you've spent on Facebook. So you see that every single one of our activity ends up generating data in one way, form, or the other. Sometimes data is even generated without us getting involved in any activity at all. If someone sends money into your account, you did not need to conduct any activity, but there's data being generated for you, right? This amount of money got into your account. This was the time that it got into your account. This was who sent it, right? And this is a confirmation whether it came through or not. So every single one of our activities today generates data. Every single thing that we find ourselves involved in doing, everything that we find ourselves doing as humans, especially in interacting with technology, we end up creating data. Now, the fact that we are generating data creates, the need to ensure that this data is being handled properly, this data is being protected, and that it's being embedded into systems and it is still functional in these systems. And these three experts are the people responsible for all of these kinds of activities. All right. Recently, I think about 2 years ago, there was a breach with the NHS, a specific department, and that's led to an over 30, I think 32 to 34 million pounds. Right, that was the cost implication of that breach. And guess what? That institution had to invest over 1.6 million pounds just that year in setting up a cybersecurity system, in upgrading their cybersecurity ecosystem. Now imagine being the person that was hired at that point. Imagine the juicy offer that you would be getting from such an organization. Besides that, this breach resulted in the loss of data. All right. Now imagine being the data engineer that this organization is hiring to now put together pipelines that ensure that this data flows efficiently. Imagine being the cybersecurity expert that's being hired to make sure that all of the data is being protected. Right? Imagine being the DevOps engineer that's being hired to ensure that all of the systems that they are investing money into is functional. The applications that they are using are all functional, and everything is working smoothly. All of these experts are responsible for various activities, and today we see that there's a 70% gap. Right, there's 70% demand. 70% of companies today use these, experts in their day-to-day activities. So how exactly do you come in? Right? While we are seeing a trend in AI, today AI is literally everywhere. You find AI everywhere you turn, you are hearing about AI in one shape, form, or the other. And what we are seeing is that AI is bringing over 4.4 trillion annually into the global economy. But here's the interesting fact. Over 95% of digital initiatives are built on cloud native platforms. What that means is they need cloud engineers that are responsible for managing these ecosystems. They need cybersecurity experts that are responsible for protecting these systems. And then they need DevOps engineers that are responsible for making sure that everything is functional. Literally every company you hear today, especially for large organizations, has a cloud infrastructure that they're operating on. And based on this research, we are seeing that 95% of these organizations, of these initiatives, are cloud based. We hear about organizations like Google Cloud, AWS, Azure. They are becoming predominantly used because they create that ecosystem for these digital initiatives to thrive. So what does that imply for you? With all of these digital initiatives being put at scale and with the burst of AI, today the industry is facing a 60% deficit. All right, a 60% global shortage in capable talents to actually manage these systems. DevOps engineering is projected to have 21% expansion as security becomes integrated into code. There's security being put into place in order to protect systems and code. I was speaking to a tech founder in Nigeria a couple of months ago, and I asked him a really interesting question. What was the biggest challenge that he faced, while building his startup? And I assumed that the biggest challenge might have been, getting customers or getting people to buy into the idea. But his response really shocked me. He said the biggest challenge they faced as a business was actually dealing with cyber attacks. A lot of people were trying to, hack into their systems, stress testing what they had existing, trying to break into the system, trying to get data, trying to get the code that had their systems working, right? Because this was a novel idea that they worked on, literally built it from scratch. And they had so many people trying to stress test the platform, trying to break into the systems and the likes of that. So while all of these digital transformations are coming in, there's also a huge demand for people who are able to manage these systems, all right? And the conversation was really interesting because it ended up with, him actually pointing out how now his organization is investing heavily in ensuring that they are well protected, while at the same time they're able to leverage AI, especially on cloud platforms. Their entire ecosystem exists on the cloud. There's literally no local server. Everything exists on the cloud. So imagine being that data engineer, imagine being that cloud engineer, imagine being that, cybersecurity expert that this startup really needs in order to make sure that they're able to address this specific threat that they are currently facing. There's a huge opportunity out there, but the question now is how exactly do you start positioning yourself for these opportunities? All of these roles that we've discussed, data engineering, DevOps, cybersecurity, they are amongst the top in-demand jobs globally, and they are amongst the jobs that are projected to grow in demand, as well as the jobs that are projected to grow in demand, as well as have high rewarding salaries. And you don't have to take my word for it. If you look at the slide decks for every single one of the points, there's a link attached to the full report where you can get to look at these details. So you do not have to take my word for it. You can do your own research and you'd actually realize that these details are actually true. This is the Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum. And you see how it outlines, the demand for these tech professionals, from big data specialists to security management specialists to data warehousing specialists, to DevOps engineers and the likes of that. These are roles that you can get into either as a data engineer, cybersecurity expert, DevOps engineer, and the likes of that. So while there are opportunities and we are seeing that these roles are projected to increase in demand with changes in the industry and despite the trend we are seeing in AI, the question now is, and this is really the big question, the million-dollar question, how do you start to position yourself for these opportunities? How do you ensure that you're able to milk from this market? How do you ensure that you are well positioned for all of these changes that are happening in the market and you can actually take advantage of these opportunities and be among those that, hit the ground running, earn these high rewarding salaries and have job security, because there's going to be continuous demand for experts in this field. So how exactly do you do this? As we've seen, practically every organization today is seeking for ways to integrate DevOps, cybersecurity, and data engineering into their systems, because these form the backbone of infrastructure. These form the backbone of literally every digital transformation, every digital initiative that you see in existence today. Now we understand that there's a demand for these experts, but then what are the differences? What exactly do these experts do, and what differentiates the data engineer from, the cybersecurity analyst, or the data engineer from the, DevOps engineer? What are the nuances in what exactly these experts do? I'm going to start with the DevOps engineer, and I'm going to ask a very plain question. If you are on the call right now and you use Instagram, just give me a thumbs up. You're on the call right now and you use Instagram, just give me a thumbs up. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. If you're on the call right now and you use Snapchat, give me a thumbs up. You're on the call right now and you use Snapchat, just give me a thumbs up. Interesting. It seems like it's only Jonathan that's on social media. All right. If you're on the call right now and you use Google Meet, give me a thumbs up. You use Google Meet, whether day to day or not as frequently as. All right. Interesting. Now, on all of these different platforms, you must have noticed that there's been recent changes to how these platforms look. There's been recent changes to how they look and feel, right? I think the Instagram message button used to be somewhere up, and now they've moved it down, right? The like button, there are recent changes. Now you can watch reels on Instagram at 2x speed. That used to be a feature that was only on TikTok. Now it's available on Instagram. Right, you can watch videos at 2x speed. You can lock that 2x speed. On Google Meet, there's been updates to how well you can use these tools. There's been changes to how it looks. There's been changes to how it operates. Now, while these changes are happening, we did not hear Google Meet at any day say we had to shut down our service so that we can implement this update. Was there anything like that? Did we hear about anything like that? No. Instagram was still working. You were probably on Instagram yesterday, you used the application, and the next morning when you woke up, you saw that the platform was looking completely different. Has anyone observed something like that? Or there's been a new change, there's been a new update to how the application looks? Have we experienced something like that? It could even be with Google Meet, right? Now there's Gemini in Google Meet. Now there are extra features in Google Meet. There's now noise cancellation. There's now audio merging. Now you can share, with Google Meet before you could only share audio when you are sharing a tab in the same browser. Now you can share across multiple tabs. When you're sharing your entire screen, you can share audio as well. These are new updates that are rolling out within the same application. And while these updates are being rolled out, while these updates are being deployed, the application did not need to shut down at any point. And that's simply because there's a DevOps engineer somewhere in the background that's making sure that everything is functional. A DevOps engineer is someone who is focused on the software development lifecycle, right? From when something is being developed to when it's being deployed to when it is being improved and then integrated back into the already existing system. So while Instagram needs to update and add, a 2x speed feature to, the application itself, or they need to update how you can go on live stream on Instagram, they did not need to shut down. A DevOps engineer was responsible for making sure that this deployment was done seamlessly and it was able to integrate into the already existing system. Their focus is strictly on ensuring that code is deployed automatically, that code is deployed seamlessly without any kind of delay, without any kind of disruption in how the system operates. Today, Facebook has a different look, right? The Facebook you used to look at 5 years ago is not the same way Facebook looks right now. And there was no point where you heard that, oh, Facebook was shut down so that they can make updates, right? You just wake up one morning and then you see that, oh, the platform now looks slightly different. There's been updates to this. Give me a thumbs up if you've experienced that. You just wake up on the platform and you see that there's new changes. There's new features on this platform, right? There's been no change they did not need to shut down or anything. That's because there's a DevOps engineer somewhere in the background that makes sure that this is operating efficiently, that makes sure that oh, I have a small device, I download this application, it's working on my device. If I send the same application to a different device, it's still functional on that same device. They can make updates, they can integrate all of these updates into the already existing system. So the major deliverable of a DevOps engineer is to make sure that an application is stable, to make sure that an application is scalable. If we need to improve on the application, we can improve on it without breaking it down first. We can work on upgrades and then integrate that into what already exists. That's the kind of work that a DevOps engineer is involved in. And some of the work that you find a DevOps engineer doing, right? Some of their responsibilities would include things like automating the deployment of a model. And by deployment, as that simply means making it available for people to use, right? Because when it's being developed, it's usually saved in a server somewhere, maybe on somebody's computer or on GitHub or on some server somewhere. But once it has been completed, it needs to be deployed up on the cloud or on the internet so that users can actually interact with it. That is basically what deployment is. So a DevOps engineer is responsible for building that pipeline, for developing that model, and then integrating it into, existing systems. I keep saying model because I'm more familiar, because of my experience in MLOps. But it's practically the same life cycle from developing predictive models to actually developing, applications themselves and integrating into already existing systems. They also manage infrastructure as a code. And this is something very common, especially with cloud platforms. They monitor the health of a system. So we deploy this particular new feature and we're looking at how well is it performing? Is it putting more stress on our system? Is it too much load on our system? Do we need to make certain changes and the likes of that? Right? They can integrate security protocols by collaborating with cybersecurity experts. And that's where, DevOps sec roles you start to see coming, or SecOps role starts to see coming, which is simply an integration of DevOps and cybersecurity. And then you see some of the tools that they majorly have is majorly Python, because you'll be working with a lot of APIs for integrating of these systems. All right, you'd find a lot of integration, a lot of tools like Terraform, Jenkins, and the likes of that. And soft skills that you actually need would be things like team collaboration, because while you are focused on the deployment of these, applications, you also have to make sure that everyone is actually pulling their weight and getting the work done. So you need to be able to collaborate with both the front-end engineer, the back-end engineer, the machine learning engineer, the data engineer, and all the other experts, get to what needs to be integrated into the system and make sure that it is deployed properly. So teamwork becomes a very vital part of the work of a DevOps engineer. Type DevOps in the chat if now you have an understanding of what a DevOps engineer does. Just go into the chat and type DevOps. And if it's not clear, just type not clear. Go into the chat and type DevOps if now you have a proper understanding of what a DevOps engineer does. So like I said, at its simplest form, the DevOps engineer is responsible for making sure that updates can be made to an already existing application without needing to shut down the application. They handle continuous development, continuous integration, and continuous deployment of applications. Now we understand what a DevOps engineer does. How about a data engineer? Earlier on in the session, I explained to us how every single one of our activities results in the creation of data. When you go on Facebook, your interactions on Facebook actually generate data. However, this data needs to flow from where it is being created to where it is being stored, and even further down to where it is being used. Earlier on the call, we heard from, what was the name again? Let me just find that name again. I'm trying to find the name of the data and analytics person here. Okay, Oluwatoyin, yes. Oluwatoyin wants to get into DevOps or data engineering because she's getting bored of data analytics. So as a data analyst, you typically find yourself making use of data in order to answer specific business questions, right? You're conducting things like descriptive diagnostic analytics. Trust me, these are not complex things. It's simply looking at data and understanding what has happened based on the data. or explaining why certain things are happening within the organization based on the data that you have. Now, before this data analyst or data scientist or whatever other data professional can be able to use this data has to be structured in a specific format. It has to be collected from where it is generated. It has to be transformed into a usable format so it's ready for analysis. And then it has to be transported all the way down to where it's being used. And that's the kind of work that a data engineer does. So they build pipelines that allow data to flow from where they are being created to where they are being stored and where they are being used. And across this pipeline, they make sure that the data is transformed into a usable format. There's a form right now that's being sent out by my colleagues for every single one of us to, provide certain details about ourselves. And by the time we go on to fill that form, there's not going to be a consistency in how we go about filling that form. An example is, say there's a field to provide your name in that form. Some of us are probably going to provide 2 names, the first name and your last name. Some people are probably going to provide 3 names, first, middle name, and the last name. And if you look at the names on the call right now, you'd actually see that pattern. If you look at some of the names, you see that some of the names are 2 names. You see that some of the names are 3 names. You see that some of the names are just a single name, right? I have Steve on the call. You see that is just Steve. There's no surname, right? And then we have Oluwaseun Oyewumi. That's 2 names, right? And if you look at my name, you'd see Jedidiah Usara. But you'd see that the Jedidiah starts with a capital J and the Usara starts with a small u. These kinds of inconsistencies in data can cause a disruption. Data is being generated on the go, but in order for this data to be analyzed, it has to be transformed into a specific format. A very practical example of certain nuances that you can find in data would even be with things like simple as dates. If everyone is asked to write the date right now, we are most likely going to have certain nuances in the way we go about writing that, right? Depending on the region that we find ourselves in. Some people will probably write day, month, year. Some people will probably like month, year, day, or month, day, year. These different changes, these different nuances has to be structured in a consistent pattern so that it can be easily analyzed. Data is coming in from multiple sources. Someone who runs a business will typically be collecting data from, in-store activities, collecting data from maybe they have an online platform, they have a POS that customers are making payments into. They will be collecting data from there, online banking platforms and the likes of that. All of these data need to be packaged into one place. If they want to know how much they sold in total, they need to look at the store records. They need to look at online platforms. They need to look at social media, look at all of these transactions that have happened and be able to come up with a comprehensive report on how much they've sold. Now, in order for them to be able to do this successfully, they need all of these data, and all of this data needs to be structured in a consistent format. The data from Instagram needs to have the same format as the data from the store. And the data from the online platform or the online shopping application has to have the same format as the data from the physical store, so that it becomes easy for professionals like data scientists, data analysts to look into this data. And that's where the data engineer comes in. Their focus is on building pipelines that allow data to flow from where it's generated to where it's being stored and where it's being used. And the contextual deliverable for a data engineer is a robust data ecosystem that provides clean, structured data for data scientists, data analysts, and business analysts to use. The end result is basically that we have a consistent format. We have transformed data that's ready for analysis. And the data engineer is responsible for sourcing the data from where it's created and then transforming it into a usable format and taking it down to where it's being used. And some of the roles or responsibilities of the data engineer would be building and maintaining ETL or ELT pipelines. ETL simply means extract, transform, load. Extract data from where it's being created, which is basically getting it, transforming it, into a usable format, making sure that it is analysis ready, and then loading it, which is basically moving it to where it is being used. So the data analyst who needs to build a Power BI report gets the data. A business analyst who needs to prepare a sales report has the data that they need. A data scientist who needs to develop a predictive model has the data that they need, because it has been extracted from where it's been created. It has been transformed to be analysis ready, and it has been loaded into these different platforms or storage location where they need to be placed in. The data engineer is also responsible for designing and maintaining cloud data warehouses. So if you're interested in cloud engineering, this will be the perfect track for you, because you'll be responsible for managing how data moves, how data is used, right? And how data is stored, especially on cloud platforms. All right. You'll be using tools like, BigQuery from Google, Amazon Redshift, Snowflake, AWS, GCP, and the likes of that. You'd also be writing code primarily in Python, right? A lot of the work you'll be doing would be, Python involved, right? Because Python is the most optimal programming language to use with processing data. There are lots of libraries that are built on Python that makes it easy for you to actually work with data. So you find yourself working with Python and SQL a lot, because you're dealing with databases, which is simply a central location where data is stored. You'd be also ensuring data quality and reliability. Remember, the objective is in making sure that data is usable after it has been created. So like I mentioned, you'll be using SQL a lot, you'll be using Python, you'll be using cloud platforms like GCP, Azure, Google, BigQuery, and the likes of that. And you'll be building pipelines using big data tools like Apache Spark, and the likes of that, Airflow. Now, certain soft skills you need to have would be attention to detail, because there are certain nuances in how data might look, and you need to be able to pay attention to that. You also need to be someone who is interested in working with robust and scalable systems. Because remember, you'd be working with cloud platforms, and these cloud platforms allow you to scale up or down depending on the demand. So if the amount of data that's being generated increases, you need to be able to scale whatever system currently exists to match that amount of data that's being generated. So like I said, the data engineer is an expert at looking at the flow of data from where it's been created to where it's being stored and down to where it's being used. And now to the next role, which is the cybersecurity engineer. The cybersecurity engineer is one that's focused on protecting digital assets within an organization. So think about things like data, think about things like code, think about things like files, think about things like algorithms, think about things like applications that exist within an organization. I give an example, and this is a practical example from my own experience speaking to a tech founder here in Nigeria. So while people are building, while organizations have codes, while organizations have applications, while they have, algorithms that help them to perform better than their competitors, they need to make sure that these things are well protected. They need to make sure that these things are well protected. But before we get into cybersecurity, I think I should ask one more time. If you now understand what a data engineer does, please go on to type data engineer in the chat. And if you're not sure, right, just type not sure. If you now understand what a data engineer does, just type data engineer in the chat. All right, let's go. We have over 24 people on the call. Just go into the chat and type data engineer. Fantastic, Philip. Fantastic. If it's not clear, so you just type not clear. All right. So Philip, thank you so much for responding. Let's go on. Let's engage. Everyone, I'd absolutely love to hear from everyone. Abdul, Daniel, Ebonolua, Ehimari, Emmanuel, Igioku, J.O., Jonathan, Justus, Mary, Michael, Olubenga, Oluwaseun, Oluwaseyi, Oluwatoyin, Philip, who has responded already, Steve, Tokwe, Yusuf. Let's go on to respond in the chat. If you now understand what a data engineer does, just type data engineer in the chat based on the explanation and based on the conversation. All right. Now I'll be moving forward to the cybersecurity expert. Like I explained, these are experts at protecting or safeguarding, digital assets. Okay. I gave an example with, my tech founder friend. He is building a, what's the term now that he likes to use? Uh, I've forgotten. There's a term he likes to use to describe, the application that he is building. It's a tech startup that's gotten funding, from international investors and the likes of that. And now they're building a very crucial platform that sits at the intersection of conflict resolution when it comes to online transactions, and at the same time also creating a platform that allows people to ship up goods and items from China, right? And at the same time, be able to interact with vendors, pretty much make purchase from trusted vendors and get their goods and products. Now, I had this conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he was explaining how cyber attacks has been a major challenge that they have been facing. A lot of people, a lot of hackers trying to stress test their system. And what happened was he had to invest a lot of money, right, in getting the best talent in order to protect their systems. This is a practical example from someone I know closely, right? But I give another example with the NHS. In 2024, there was a data breach, and they literally had to spend over 32 million pounds in addressing that. Besides that 32 million pounds that they were spending in addressing that issue, they invested over 1.6 million pounds in getting the right kind of infrastructure, in hiring the right kinds of talents in order to make sure that these kinds of occurrences do not happen again. So what exactly does the cybersecurity expert do? I'm going to cite a very practical example. Imagine someone breaking into a bank in the US, not taking a single cash, but stealing every single customer's social security number. Imagine the kind of damage that that person could do. Or imagine someone breaking into a bank in Nigeria and stealing every single person's BVN. They didn't take one single naira, but then stealing every single person's BVN. There's huge damage that these people could actually do to these customers, to the bank as well, right? And this is going to cause huge financial implication on the bank, because they would start to need to make compensations. They start to need to address, because there's been a data breach and there are compliance policies that are meant to protect, the generators of this data, which is you and I, right? There are compliance policies that these organizations have to follow. And if something like a breach should happen, there's going to be a huge financial implication on this organization. And so a lot of organizations today are investing heavily on not just the infrastructure, which is what the data engineer and DevOps engineer are responsible for managing, but also the security of this infrastructure. So while the data engineer is handling the data infrastructure and the DevOps engineer is handling the code infrastructure, the cybersecurity expert is responsible for protecting these systems that exist. So they handle things like protecting systems, protecting networks, protecting organizations from unauthorized access, cyber attacks, data breaches, and the likes of that. The major deliverable of the cybersecurity expert is to make sure that a system is working effectively and they can proactively detect threats or vulnerabilities in a particular organization system and start to address them as optimally as possible. So how exactly do you position yourself for these opportunities? How exactly do you start getting yourself prepared for, whether DevOps or cybersecurity or data engineering? What are the tools? What are the roles? What are the skills that a cybersecurity expert should have? You should be able to identify, assess and remediate security vulnerabilities. You should be able to tell, oh, these are the areas where we are vulnerable, right? And this is what we should do in order to remediate this. our system, our firewall is not as strong as it should be. We should upgrade this to a much more updated version, or whatever we have. Black hats have been able to come up with, a backdoor or some way to break through that. So we need to upgrade. We need to make sure that we are constantly on the defensive side and making sure that people or, these exploiters cannot break into our system. They implement and manage security controls, things like firewalls, endpoint protection, IAM, encryption for data transfer, for network, security, and the likes of that. They make sure that all of these systems, all of these communication channels are well protected. They make sure that there's monitoring available on all of the activities within the organization. They can detect any kind of vulnerability, they can detect any kind of threat, and they can address it. And if at all there's an incident, they can actually identify this incident as quickly as possible and actually respond to it, address it, making sure that it does not escalate into anything overly complicated. They test systems and make sure that it's very well functional and protected against these exploiters. They employ, and embed security best practices into the activities within the organization. I'm sure for a lot of us who are in the corporate space, we've probably gone through one, cybersecurity training or the other. How many of us have experienced that? Just give me a thumbs up. This is something you most likely experience while getting employed into an organization. Because if there's one breach, if there's someone who is able to access just one employee's email, it can make huge damage, and from there can link towards all the other systems within the organization. Just having access to one person's computer within that network automatically gives them access, depending on the level of access that computer has, gives them a lot of access to other resources within the bank or within the organization. I keep using the bank because this is one of the most most vulnerable institutions, but it's not limited to the bank. I gave an example with the NHS. This is a healthcare organization, but they are still facing cyber attacks. I give an example with my friend who is working in the tech space, right? Who is running a tech startup, and they are still facing cyber attacks. So the cybersecurity role or DevOps or data engineering is not usually limited to just the tech space. There are opportunities in healthcare, there are opportunities in banking, there are opportunities in politics, in government, right? And what you really want to do is to position yourself for these opportunities. Now, how exactly do you do that? How exactly do you position yourself for these opportunities? At Analytics, we've come up with a 3-step formula that's designed to help you achieve this. But before we talk about the 3-step formula, I would like for you to go into the chat and type cybersecurity if you now have an understanding of what a cybersecurity expert does. Just go into the chat and type in cybersecurity if now you understand what a cybersecurity expert does. All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Yusuf. Fantastic. Fantastic. So like I said, here at Analytics, we've come up with a 3-step formula to help ensure that you are well prepared for these opportunities. The first is you need to identify what these opportunities are. You need to identify and actually know that these are opportunities. Because if you do not know, you would keep looking at them blindly. And once you've identified these skills or these areas where there are opportunities, the next thing you need to do, which is the very first step, right, is actually learning that skill. So now we know that there's opportunity in data engineering. Now we know that there's opportunity in cybersecurity. Now we know that there's opportunity in DevOps engineering, and we understand what these experts do on a day-to-day and the difference between one role and the other. We know that there's a demand in the global tech market for these roles. Now, the next step we need to take is actually in learning these skills. You need to make sure that you have practical knowledge of these tools, of these skills, of how the system operates, and what exactly these tech experts do. Before we start talking about learning, I'd like to hear from all of us on the call right now. Based on the conversation so far, which one of these tracks do you feel is the best suited one for yourself? Will that be cybersecurity, data engineering, or DevOps engineering? Yes, Stanley, the session is being recorded. And in order for you to have access to this, make sure you fill the attendance form. My colleagues are sharing that in the chat. All right, Stanley? All right. So based on the conversation so far, which one of these tracks do you feel is the best fit for you? Will that be cybersecurity, DevOps engineering, or data engineering? Based on all of the explanation so far. This is interesting. This is interesting. So I see cybersecurity for Lubenga. I see DevOps for Michael. I see cybersecurity for Jonathan. DevOps for Abdul. DevOps for Yusuf. That's interesting. Philip says depends on which one would be easier to do. That's interesting. Stanley says cybersecurity GRC. Chooks says cybersecurity. That's really interesting. Cybersecurity. I think we have a lot of cybersecurity people here, and a couple of DevOps. I don't think I've seen any data engineering yet. All right, fantastic. Trust me, there are opportunities for you in the space. What you really want to do is to prepare yourself for these opportunities. And like I said, this three-step formula has proven to work. The first step you need to take is to learn, and you need to learn in a practical environment. The next thing you need to do is to package everything that you've learned. You need to have a CV that portrays you as a cybersecurity expert. You need to have a LinkedIn profile that puts you out there as a cybersecurity expert. You need to have a portfolio of projects that you have worked on. And this is something we preach here at Analytics, competence over credentials. You really need to have evidence. My Nigerians will say show workings, right? No be cha-cha-cha. You need to have practical evidence that you know these things, that you've actually worked in this space and you can showcase your work. Show workings. All right. You need to be able to answer questions during an interview. There are specific questions that you get to encounter during an interview, and you need to be able to give the right response, right? I'm not saying give any kind of response. Now, there's a response that you might give that you feel like is correct, right? But there's a response that the interviewers are actually expecting from you. So understanding what kind of response to give during an interview is very key, and this allows you to package yourself in order to secure your very first role. And the next thing you want to do, once you have packaged yourself, now you have a CV, you have a LinkedIn profile that shows you as a data, cybersecurity engineer, a DevOps engineer, and the likes of that, right? Then you want to go on to start applying, because now there's public evidence. You have your portfolio, you have your LinkedIn profile, and so much content that you've put around the tech space. Now you can apply, and for each role you're applying to, you need to tailor your CV to the specific role that you're applying to. You need to be able to tap into the hidden job market, into the paid job market, assessing jobs that are not readily available to the general public. So how exactly can you access some of these jobs, and how can Analytics help you to do that? Looking back at this three-step formula, the first thing you need to do is to learn. First thing you need to do is to learn the skill. And there are two major things that every single recruiter wants to see. When you're applying to a job, there are two major things that every single recruiter wants to see. These two things are the skills. And the second thing is experience. Regardless of whatever role it is, cybersecurity, data engineering, DevOps engineering, whatever tech role, two things, skills and experience. Now you note that I did not mention certification here, and that is on purpose. Even for roles like cybersecurity that is regulated, and you usually would need to have a certification. The certification becomes secondary, and I'll explain why. Number one, the skills. You really need to have the skills, understand practically, and not just understand them, but actually know how to do these things for yourself. You need to be able to write Python code as a data engineer. You need to be able to write Linux, or go through penetration testing. You need to be able to, practically, go through open source intelligence, network security as a cybersecurity expert. You need to be able to deploy applications as a DevOps engineer. You need to be able to build CI/CD pipelines as a DevOps engineer. And how do you know how to do these things by learning them and by learning in a project-based environment. And that's what analytics is designed to help you do, to learn these things practically and how you can actually implement them in a typical work environment. So we have a flexible learning structure that allows you to learn all of these skills through self-paced learning materials, as well as through the live classes, instructor-led classes that you would actually be going through during your training with us at Analytics. There are also employability skills that you get to pick on. Because while knowing the technical details is very important, you also need employability skills. It's like being a carpenter that only knows how to build furniture without knowing how to sell furniture. While making the furniture is great, you need to know how to market your furniture. You need to know how to sell. You need to know how to find the right kinds of customers. You need to know how to advertise your product. If not, you'd only be great at it without making any money out of it. So really, while you are learning the technical skill, you also need employability skills that can help you to actually secure a job, that can help you to actually start making money with this skill that you're learning. And the way Analytics helps you to do that is through our employability services, which include things like CV review and revamp. We help you go through your CV, optimize it, and help you revamp it so that you are ready for a job. We show you how you can tailor your CV to specific jobs you're applying to. We take you through LinkedIn optimization, right? Where you're looking at how you can, create or structure your LinkedIn profile to attract the right kind of audience. And I can tell you for a fact that there are a ton of opportunities for you through LinkedIn. At the beginning of the session, we were listening to some testimonials. All right, if you were here at the beginning of the session, we had two testimonials from these people who were able to transition into one was data engineering, the other was data analytics. And the data engineering guy was sharing that he literally got his job with the organization literally reaching out to him. Right, he did not need to apply to any one of these roles. The organization was literally reaching out to him simply because he already had a structured profile that accurately positions him for these kinds of opportunities. And I can tell you for a fact, I have had similar opportunities, literally. Earlier this year, I got an opportunity to work with a banking organization in South Africa. I did not apply for the role. He reached out to me through LinkedIn. Last year, I had I think it was 6 months engagement with a US-based client. Working from Nigeria, working from the comfort of my home. I did not need to leave. I did not need to travel out of the country, working with an international organization, earning in dollars. So yes, there are opportunities for you, but you really need to learn how to position yourself for these interviews. And guess the interesting part, I also did not apply for that role. The organization literally reached out to me through LinkedIn and presented the offer. I did not have to go through any interview. I literally went from a LinkedIn conversation to earning in dollars. And you too can do the same if you optimize your LinkedIn profile and position yourself for these opportunities. You'll be learning how you can navigate the job markets, understanding what recruiters are looking out for, and how you can position yourself for these opportunities. You'd also be getting expert guidance in preparing for interviews. You'd get job reference letters made available to you on request. You get on-the-job support even after you've gotten a job. And we have our weekly mentorship sessions that are designed to help you build the soft skills and employability skills by interacting with tech experts, people who are already in the space, from immigration experts to interview experts to job application to HR experts, who are guiding you on how to navigate this entire journey. I would also be looking at Upwork optimization. So in case you decide you do not want to work for a conventional company, you want to work freelance, work on projects, get paid, or you want to work on, on contract basis, get paid for a particular period, and then you move on with your life. You'll be looking at how you can leverage Upwork in order to be able to do that. And in all of this, you'll be seeing how you can build these premium skills in the tech space. Now, besides the skills, I mentioned that there's one more thing that recruiters want, right? I mentioned there are two things. Number one are the skills. What's the second thing that recruiters want? Let's go on to type that in the chat. What's the second thing that recruiters want from every person before they hire? Yes, let's go on to type that in the chat. I mentioned that there are two things recruiters want. skills, and what's the second thing? Thank you, Abdul. Experience. Experience. I gave an example with a carpenter. While knowing how to build furniture is great, right? While knowing how to build furniture is amazing. You also need to know how to advertise this furniture that you're building. You need to know how to sell. You need to know how to market it so that you can actually make money, right? So two things that every single recruiter wants: skills and experience. Nobody wants to hire someone that only has a certificate and really does not know the work itself. Nobody wants to hire a cybersecurity expert that claims they know cybersecurity, meanwhile they only know it in theory. Because if a cyber attack actually happens, such a person is most likely going to panic and not know how to handle such a situation. So before an organization can hire you, they need tangible evidence that you actually have done these things before. And a lot of times, the way recruiters tend to confirm this is by asking for some level of experience, and this has to reflect on your CV. So you hear about things like, oh, we need someone with 2 years of experience, someone with 3 years of experience. Now, for you who is only breaking into the space, how can you show them that you have experience working in this space without actually working for an organization? How can you show them that, yes, I can build, CI/CD pipelines as a DevOps engineer. I can go through penetration testing as a cybersecurity expert. I can go through GRC for you as a cybersecurity expert. You do that by, first of all, having a collection of projects that you have worked on. This becomes tangible evidence that you have done these things before. This way, you are not just saying, I know how to build CI/CD pipelines. You are showing this is a CI/CD pipeline that I have built before. You need me to build CI/CD pipelines? This is a CI/CD pipeline I've built. You need me to, come put together, compliance policies for your organization. This is an example of one that I've gone through. This is an example of a home lab that I have built as a cybersecurity expert. You are expecting me to do this for your organization? This is an example of what I have done before. This is one way analytics helps you to do that. Throughout your entire learning, you'd actually be working on projects that get added to your portfolio. Now, besides these projects, you also get to enjoy a 2 month period of internship with our partner organization, Amidari. During this period, you'll be working on more projects that get added to your portfolio. But here's the added advantage. At the end of all of this, you get to have both Tenalytics and Amidari reflect on your CV, reflect on your LinkedIn profile as some form of work experience. And all of the projects you've worked on can get to reflect on your CV and LinkedIn profile. It doesn't get better than this. Now you are well positioned for these opportunities. And earlier I mentioned, yes, while roles in cybersecurity, at some level, you might need to start getting certifications, right? But that's not the priority, especially when recruiters are trying to get someone to hire. Yes, it's a very important factor, but what they prioritize when looking at candidates is, first of all, whether or not you have the skills, and secondly, whether you have experience. If you can show tangible proof of these two things, you stand a better chance of actually getting a job than someone who has a certification but does not have these things. So while the certifications are great, while the certifications are important, your real focus should be on actually getting the skills and solidifying, experience in this space. Now we have a clear understanding of what these three experts do and how you can get yourself positioned for these opportunities. And I mentioned to us earlier on the call that there's a special opportunity for every single person that's sticking around to the end of the session. For a lot of us right now, we have decided which one of the tech tracks we want to get into. I've heard Abdul say he would like to get into DevOps, Yusuf DevOps, Jonathan cybersecurity, Michael cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. right? Chooks, cybersecurity, and the likes of that. Now, how exactly do you get started? And how does 10 Analytics help you to do that? Michael, DevOps, fantastic. How does 10 Analytics help you to do that? We have a cohort that will be starting on the 11th of April. This is a program that would span for a period of 6 months, after which you get your 2 months of internship. That's 8 months in total, where you are practically learning these things, you're practically gaining the skills, you're practically gaining the knowledge. And all of these benefits come bundled with the employability services. We are taking you through revamping your CV, working on your CV for you, taking you through reviewing your LinkedIn profile, revamping it to position yourself for these opportunities, right? Taking you through all of these details as you take the tech training with us here at Analytics. And all of this is coming at a bundled price. I mentioned this at the start of the call. For everyone that's sticking around to the end of the session, there's actually a special discount made available to you. As of right now, we are currently giving out a 50% discount to everyone that's getting enrolled into any one of our programs. So right now, the full price of the program is $1,200. However, with the 50% discount, you only need to pay $600. You only need to pay half of that. But here's the catch. To get started and take advantage of this 50% discount, enjoying all of the benefits, right now, you only need $200 for you to gain instant access to all the full benefits of the program. My colleagues are already sharing the link in the chat. What you want to do is simply to go on to click on that link so you can go on to reserve your slot at the 50% discount. This is available for a limited number of time, and there are a limited number of slots available for this. So what you really want to do is at a price of $200 only, you can go on to secure your slot, and then in subsequent months, you pay the rest of the instrumental payments. So the full price is $1,200, but with the 50% discount, you'd only be paying $600. And what you want to do is pay only $200 now. What that does for you is to lock in your slot for the 50% discount, and you gain instant access to all of the resources, to the platforms, as well as the resources that are going to be used on your training. My advice to you would actually be to take advantage of this. You're interested in getting into cybersecurity. Now you know there are opportunities. You really want to get started today. What I'm going to do right now is walk you through how you can go on to secure your slot into the program. My colleagues are already sharing the link in the chat. I'm simply going to walk you through how you can go on to secure a slot. What you want to do once you click on that link is to scroll down and locate the specific track that you're interested in. For some of us, we mentioned DevOps engineering. For some of us, it was cybersecurity, right? Go on to locate that specific track, right? You see cybersecurity here, you see DevOps engineering. What you want to do is locate the track you're interested in and click on Enroll Now. Once you click on Enroll Now, it takes you onto the next page that gives you a breakdown of what is being covered on the program. On this next page, you simply want to click on the Enroll Now button one more time. Once you click on that, it typically will take you to the next page where you are required to provide certain details about yourself. So simply go on to provide those details, your name, your email address, and the likes of that. Right? And once you're done, you can go on to select what payment plan works best for you. You can pay the full $600, or you can take the instrumental plan. And like I said, all you need to get started is only $200 today, so you can secure your slot and actually get started on the program. Now, what I'll do is to take the next couple of minutes responding to any questions that we might have to ensure that we are all on the right track and clarifying things for everyone. All right. And my recommendation would be for you to go on, secure your slot for whatever track you're interested in as we go through these questions. All right. I see a couple of questions in the chat and I've responded to some of them already. I've walked us through how you can secure your slot. I'm going to simply go on through these questions one more time and respond to any ones that I see in the chat. Stanley asks, do you offer cybersecurity GRC training? Yes. Our cybersecurity training spans across 4 major tracks. Network security, SOC analytics, GRC, and penetration testing. These are the 4 major areas that you'll be learning about as you take the cybersecurity program. All right. Now, at the end of your training, you get to decide which one of these tracks you want to specialize on. The reason we design it this way is to ensure that you have a robust knowledge, you have a robust understanding of how the cybersecurity space operates, right? And you have multiple entry points into the cybersecurity space. Now you understand how the entire ecosystem works. You get to make a much more informed decision on which one is right for you, and then you get a more tailored guide on how you can navigate that specific track. I hope that answers your question, Stanley. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat or use the raise hand gesture. I'll call you out so I can hear your question. All right, Stanley, give me a thumbs up if that answers your question. You can actually unmute yourself. I would like to hear from you. Philip asks, do you help with entry-level job applications? If yes, is there a different package for it? So actually, we help you with job application, and I'm of the school of thought that there are no entry-level jobs, or at least no one who goes through 10 analytics program would be looking for entry-level jobs. Why? Because of the structure of the learning, because of the structure or the depth of what you'd actually be learning, and the way we take you through reviewing your CV and positioning yourself for opportunities. You would not be starting from scratch. We'll be looking at your previous experiences and tailoring that to the role that you're trying to get into. That way, we ensure that you, instead of targeting entry-level roles, will pay you, less, right? You're actually aiming for mid-level to senior, even senior level roles, right? We heard the testimonial from at the beginning of the session. The guy who took the data analytics program completed the program. Before he actually completed, they reached out to him through LinkedIn, and we're offering him a lead level role. He was being offered a lead level position. So as you go through the training, you are not, trust me, you are not looking at entry-level positions. But there's an extra advantage you have is actually the fact that you get to tap from the hidden and paid job market. I mentioned this earlier during the conversation. How exactly do we do this? Tenalytics has gone on to some of these premium platforms, and we have paid in order to access premium jobs. These are jobs that are not available to every other person. So we have paid in order to access these jobs, right? And seasonally, we scrape for these jobs, we get them, and then we provide them to you. Some of these jobs come with visa sponsorship. A lot of them are remote work, hybrid positions, or even in-person positions. You get to skim through all of these jobs, pick out the one that best suits your goals, and then you get to apply for these roles. Remember, when you have an interview, you also get interview preparation from Analytics. So it's designed with intention to help you actually secure a job. I hope that answers your question, Philip. Yes, and the last part, is there a different package for it? Absolutely not. All of this is a part of the experience you get to have. So if you're going for cybersecurity, we'll script for cybersecurity jobs, make them available to you. All you need to do is now take that CV we have helped you to work on, tailor it to this specific job. And we've trained you on how to do that. And when you are called for an interview, you get to have 10 analytics prepare you for those interviews so you can scale them and actually land your very first one. Stanley says, awesome. Thanks. That answers my question. I also want to ask another question about the training delivery with also the 2 month internship you mentioned. Yes, Stanley, you can go on to unmute yourself and ask. For the rest of us, you can go on to click on the link and go on to secure your slot. Right. If you're doing that right now, just give me a thumbs up. If you're already going on to secure your slot for the next cohort, just give me a thumbs up. We've all identified which track works best for us. So I'd like for everyone to simply give me a thumbs up. Olubenga says, do I need coding ability to do the data engineering? So whether you have a coding background or not, yes, there's coding involved in data engineering. However, on the training, we'd actually take you through learning how to do that. So whether you already have a background in it or not, would actually take you from the basics all the way to the more advanced concepts. So yes, there's coding involved in data engineering, but we'll be training you on how to do that. Does that answer your question, Olubenga? Steve says, is cybersecurity GRST still 8 months? Yes, it is. It's a bundled package with everything that you're learning all through the period of 8 months. So 6 months of learning in the classroom, and then 2 months of internship with our partner organization, Amadai. I hope that answers your question, Steve. All right, fantastic, fantastic. Now, my question to everyone on the call is: are you securing your slot right now? Give me a thumbs up if you're already getting enrolled for, either the cybersecurity or DevOps engineering track. Just give me a thumbs up if you're already getting enrolled right now. I would absolutely love to hear from everyone. Are you securing your slot right now? Okay, Stanley is saying, can I elaborate more on the training delivery model and also expand on the 2 months internship? Um, Stanley, which one of the tracks are you getting into? Cybersecurity or DevOps engineering? Can you unmute yourself, please, Stanley?
Okay, hi. So I was looking at the cybersecurity GRC.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more like I just wanted to know what's like the delivery model for the training. I've had a situation whereby I've paid for a training like this, then the delivery model wasn't so accurate because all I was given was a bunch of notes and PDF files to go about and read. And I'm like, of course, I can get all this information from paying for a Coursera course. So, which I wanted like a hands-on training. So that's what I'm asking. I want to know more about the delivery model, and also if you can just expand more after the training for 6 months, which you explained, if you could tell us more on the internship, like how do you guys, what's the model? How do you deliver this training that you're offering us?
All right. So while I spoke about, what recruiters need from you, I spoke about not just having the skill, but actually having the experience. All right. Now, how do we help you to get the skill? We help you to get the skill by taking you through case study based live classes. So there are learning materials, right? PDFs, video resources, ebooks, slide decks that you get to consume at your own pace. You're working on, you're watching these videos, and all of these videos are practical and case study based. So as you're watching these videos, you're actually practically doing something on your own end. You're watching, it's called watch me do it videos. So you're watching and then you are doing it as well as the facilitator in the videos. And besides these resources, the videos, the ebooks, PDFs, slides, and all of those materials, you also have live sessions. Now, the videos or the Watch Me Do It videos are focused on helping you to build the skills, right? Understand the concepts, understand the fundamentals, understand how to navigate these applications. And then in the live case study based classes, we are now working on a real life project. So it's going to be a live class like this where we're working end to end on a real life case study. And at the end of that session, you'd have a project that gets added to your portfolio. Now, the live classes are happening on alternating weekends. And for every one of these live classes, you have a new project that you're working on. So at the end of your training, you'd have had a collection of projects that get added into your portfolio. Does this make sense?
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Right. So this is how you pick up the skills. And then as you go, every single one of the projects you're working on are getting added to your portfolio from the live classes to the Watch Me Do videos. Because like I said, even in the Watch Me Do videos, there are projects you're working on. So all of these get added to your portfolio. And then the internship is done with our partner organization. Now, during this time, you are no longer going through live classes anymore. You are no longer looking at video resources to learn. Because at this point, you would have gotten the skills already. The focus now is on helping you gain work experience, helping you gain experience by practically working on more projects. Now the approach changes. What you get are practical case studies. And instead of having a facilitator take you through it on a live session, which is what you're experiencing during the training, right? A facilitator walking you through it, showing you, oh, this is how to do this is how to do this is what you do first, this is what you do next. And at the end, you have completed the project that gets added. This time around, you simply have the project and you're expected to work on it on your own. Now, you're not completely left on your own, right? You actually have a team of experts who would still be guiding you and would have seasonal touch points with you to know, oh, how well are you going? What challenges are you facing? And how can we help you to address these challenges? The focus is on working on more projects and simulating a work environment where you are building experience in all of these tools. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that answer your question, Stanley?
Yes, it does. Thank you for expanding on that.
All right. So 6 months of training through videos and live sessions, and then 2 months of internship where you're working on more projects and you're getting expert guidance on how to complete these things.
All right, so I would just ask this last question. So you said if we sign up today, we get to pay $600 for this. So now, so the money we're paying covers this program for 6 months and internship, and we're not going to pay any other money, including to this. So I just want
That's
to be
correct.
sure that once we pay this, either you pay the $600 upfront or you pay instrumentally, it covers for the training. Because I'm saying this because there's been programs online where I've had people pay as much as $800, and then at the end of the day, they get to tell them that okay, to get personalized experience on this, you have to pay extra money for this. You know, at that point, it looks like you've been scammed, right? So that's why I'm asking, just to be sure that once you pay this, that's all you're paying for the training. So if there's any other hidden charges or any other hidden payments, you could just tell us now, just so we know what we are signing up for.
Yeah. So there are absolutely no other hidden charges. Once you get enrolled today, you have immediate access to the mentorship, to the live resources. You have access to the training itself. You have access to the employability services. You have access to the paid jobs that I mentioned earlier. You have access to mentorship from Analytics. You have access to the internship as well at no extra fee. Everything is bundled into the single package that you are paying for, right? So all you're paying is $600, and all you need today to actually secure a slot is $200 to get started. So whether you're taking one-time payments or the instrumental, once you complete the payments, there's no extra fee. I stand. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much for that.
All right, awesome. So Stanley, have you made payments yet? Have you secured your slots?
Well, so with the clarification on this, yeah, I'll most likely do that right away.